Welcome to the Grow Your Business and Grow Your Wealth podcast with Gary Helt. Gary is an expert in helping business owners put together a plan that will provide a better future for their businesses, themselves, and their families. On the podcast, Gary interviews other professionals who share his vision, and together they share secrets and strategies any business owner can use to build a better financial foundation for your business and your life.
This is Ed De La Rosa. I'm guest host today for the Grow Your Wealth podcast. And today I have with me Susan Brill. She is an accountant outside of beautiful San Diego. And so, Susan, welcome to your Grow Your Wealth podcast.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Yes.
I appreciate it.
No, I'm excited to talk to you today and just kind of get to know you a little better, get to know what it is that you do. But one of the questions that I love to ask first is, why people do what they do, and so what I love to know is, why did you become an accountant in the first place?
Right. Well, I've always liked numbers, always good at math, solving problems, puzzles, that kind of thing. So I guess in the end, it was a no-brainer. About 20 years ago, I was working at a CPA firm, and they really taught me accounting, not just math, but how to do accounting properly. And there was a woman that worked there. She was getting ready to retire, and she kind of took me under the wing, her wing, and was like, okay, this is, how accounting is, and explained a lot of things with me and took time with me.
Wow. Well, that's awesome. I think having a mentor is so important, right? Not only does it help us give a firm foundation for our careers, but help us feel a lot more competent, and really we can help us expand in our expertise in a number of ways. So speaking of that, how have you used your expertise and what you have learned and what you've been able to be mentored through, and how did your career evolve over the years to get you to where you're doing what you're doing right now, which is being independent?
Right. So after being mentored, that was a great stepping stone. I got a lot of knowledge on that. But there's always, like you were saying, there's more to learn. There's obviously more to experience. So I kind of started going into different companies, different industries, and across the board, it's very interesting to see how kind of different industries do their financials, their bookkeeping. So at the end of the day, it is the same thing, but it's how they go about it and what's more pertinent to a specific industry on what's going on. So for example, like a wealth management company, a lot of the clients have a lot of accounts, maybe various entities and things like that, where a company like a law firm has a lot of AP and AR, and that's very important, or client trust accounting. So over the years, I've just, worked in different industries and learned, different ways about doing things, seeing how it works with different companies, and kind of combined all that to my forte, and how I go about things, this worked really well with this company, and bring it to another one. And it just really helps in understanding, how money works with companies. And, the ideal is you want the best financials. At the end of the year, I want to give everything to a CPA to do the tax return in a nice bow. We want to make this process as easy as possible. So that's kind of how I look at my position and what I've learned over the years on what's the best thing to do, best case scenario, and how to do my work.
That's awesome, Susan. And I'm going to get a little philosophical right now, but I always like to ask this question, and that is, what does it mean to you? What does it mean to you to be an accountant, to do what you do?
Right. So I specialize in small to medium sized businesses. So a lot of times this is someone's livelihood. Like this is a family business or something like that. And I'm a very important part of that because my my rule of thumb is you run your business by your books. If you don't have proper bookkeeping, financials, you really don't know what your company is doing. And it's, how are you paying bills or payroll if you don't know if you even have the money to do it or budgeting for it? So, I feel like I am a part of that business. Like, I care about their success and I want them to do well. So I kind of come in and it's not only just doing the day-to-day counting, but it's having, conversations with them about, hey, like you're spending a lot of money on snacks where you're not going to be able to make payroll next month. So, maybe let's cut out the snacks or things like that. Or, um, a small business, like they might not understand, like it's imperative to pay like your taxes or payroll or, things like that. And it's just helping them like alleviating stress off of their plate so they can run their business, like, doing whatever their specialty is or whatever they're creating. And then I take care of the financials for them. Like I'm the eyes on what's going on behind the scenes so they can focus on what they're doing.
That's great. Susan, you've been doing this for a little time, right? How many years have you been doing?
20
Uh,
years.
20 years. So you could have pretty much gone anywhere. I'm sure you are a catch to any large accounting firm. How did you get to decide that you wanted to be independent? Why did you do that?
So 10 years ago I had my resume posted on Craigslist of all places, and the owner of a wealth management company reached out to me and he said that he was very interested in working with me. And his vision was that he wanted to hire me as another service to offer his clients. So they take care of the investment, the retirement, generational wealth. And he's like, there's a need for someone like you, to oversee their monthly accounting and things like that, or to, organize a lot of times or clean up. So that's kind of how it started. But it was, he didn't want to hire me as an employee. He was like, it would be a contract position because it would be specific to his clients that wanted to retain me. So 10 years later, I am still with them. My position has evolved, so I still do that with I now do the wealth management books and then the owner's books as well. And then I have clients outside of it. So it kind of that's where it started and it took off.
That's where it morphed. Yeah. And so, speaking to that, who do you serve? Like, who is your ideal client?
I'm pretty open. I mean, I have a lot of clients and they're a variety of industries, like I was saying as well. So, I have like this small mom and pop that it's a family owned business. It's been for years. And, I get to know the family and, things like that. So I love being a part of that. But in the same sense, like I love being a part of like a law firm or a wealth management company, or I even have like a palm tree wholesaler. Like it's a variety. So I mean, I guess to answer your question is like I like the one-on-one kind of like where I'm an intricate part of their business and helping them grow.
Gotcha. And what are some common issues that you help businesses with?
So a lot of times I'll be hired for projects to clean up kind of like their bookkeeping. And the biggest thing that I see is like they'll have a spouse or a family friend or maybe like a nanny, like, oh, they can do the books for our business and they don't understand accounting. So it comes like their books are a complete mess. And it's usually accounts aren't being reconciled, accounts like are completely missing off the chart of accounts. Um so it's kind of like taking a step back and like just looking at what's going on and kind of showing them like the importance, like this is why it's important to have proper bookkeeping. Like this is why you need your financials and someone that actually knows what they're doing. Like, I mean, your business could flop if you don't have that.
And how do people find you, by the way? The folks who especially have these kind of issues, how do they find you?
So a lot of times, a lot of my jobs I've got from like word of mouth, Craigslist, people find me on LinkedIn. I've had people find me on Upwork. So it's just a variety of a combination of all that.
Gotcha. Let's go back to a little bit about being an accountant and your work. What are some common misconceptions that clients or prospects or people that perhaps just maybe are maybe intimidated or really don't know what it is that you do or don't do? What are some common misconceptions about your work?
Um, I think that they think it's just data entry. That would be like the biggest
Yeah.
thing. It's like, oh, it's easy. Anybody can do it. And it's like, yeah, like I do enter information into the computer, but I need to understand what I'm entering. And it's very specific how things need to be entered and, looked at. And again, like, I go back to the account reconciliations where I've had people go, oh, I don't need that. Well, you do need it because it's a checks and balances system. So it's just like kind of explaining, things like that. And as I said earlier, like I strongly believe you run your business by your books. And it's like, if you don't know where you are financially, I don't know how businesses proceed. So that's why I'm like, I've walked into businesses where they haven't had their books done in like a year and a half. And it's like, oh my goodness, like, and just kind of explaining to them like why it's important to stay up to date on things. Like things will fall through the crack if it's not kept up to date.
Sure. So speaking of things going wrong, can you tell us of a story, maybe a little more specific, of course, without an example of just something going wrong with a small business that you perhaps were able to help, or maybe you weren't able to help them because it was just too far gone.
Yeah, so there was one business I walked into, and I first walked in and I see 3 typewriters. And I'm like, "Oh my goodness." And it, it was one of those businesses that they've been doing the same thing the same way for 20 years. Their, change is terrifying to them, that kind of thing. So they were doing their accounting on an Excel spreadsheet, so keeping track. But then that kind of got messed up. And so I said, well, the first thing is we need to set up like a proper accounting for you. So I set up QuickBooks for them. And then the next thing is, you know, when was your last tax return filed? Because we need to start right after that and kind of like create accounting starting from that date. And I usually say like anything prior to that date, I am not responsible for. Like that's a given. So in creating this, I realized that the person before me prepared all the 1099s on a typewriter.
Wow.
And I'm like, okay. So I'm going through, and there was a mistake of over $100,000 on one 1099.
Okay.
So yeah, it's bad. So, I just had to go to the owners of the company and clearly explain to them, like, again, this is a reason why you have to have proper accounting or bookkeeping because of things like that. So I was able, I think like they filed an amended 1099 and then like set up their actual accounting for them and then produced financials and had meetings with them to show them like like one, how to read the financials and kind of like what they're looking at and what everything means. And like just, we got to stop doing things like the old fashioned way. We got to get up to dated and, like streamline things, and like realizing like jobs that took three people are now down to one person just by eliminating and cleaning things up. Like it's extremely beneficial to companies. So it is helping them see that.
Yeah. So you were able to do a 180 with that small business and turn things around?
Yes.
Yeah. That's fantastic. That's incredible because sometimes, people just focus so much on the cost, but they worry about the wrong cost. They need to look at, okay, what is my top line and what is my bottom line? Because if we're not looking at the details, we can really go off the rails. And I'm sure, based on what you've told me, uh, I'm sure you've seen many businesses where they're just mixing their personal and their business together, expenses, and that's a huge mess, right? They're using their business as their lifestyle as their piggy bank.
Yeah,
Um,
a lot of commingling. I've seen that. I've let them know like that can't be done. And also, what to go back to what you were saying is like, companies are afraid of the cost. And it's like, okay, when you go cheap, you're going to end up paying for it down the line anyway. And,
Absolutely.
usually when I come in, and it could be overwhelming when I meet with like, a family or something. And I'm like, having to tell them like all this stuff needs to be done to clean up your books. And I'm very upfront with them. Like, it's going to be a lot of money at first, but once it's cleaned up, it's not, it's just maintaining it, which is going to be cost efficient for you down the line, and it's helping them understand that.
Gotcha. Yeah, tell us another story of something going right.
Um, so to be honest with you, there are only two companies I ever walked into that had their books completely in line, on point. But one of those companies got audited. Okay. And my predecessor and I had the same idea about how to go about accounting. And something like being audited can make a small business go under.
Yeah.
And we organized and kept everything the same exact way, same ideas. And I was able to blow through that audit like within a week. I mean, it was extremely simple, and that is kind of unheard of.
Yeah. Well, that's really awesome, Susan, because that is part of every business's biggest fear is to get that audit. And of course, that's why you want your book straight in the first
Yes.
place and not commingling. So, speaking of, what's your biggest challenge in the work that you do in helping folks and their businesses?
So that's like they're afraid, like they're afraid to have someone they don't know coming in. Like, can they trust the person? So it's putting them at ease, and then, you know, being very transparent about what is going on with their accounting. And, sometimes I have to have very difficult situation or conversations with them that, they might have to close their business, or, they have more debt than they thought that they did. And, um, or even like cleaning up their books is like, it's like I'll tell them it's challenging, it's not impossible, like just being there for them, and, giving them like peace of mind. And I guess that's the big, and then, the, like you were saying earlier, the money aspect, like, oh, we can't afford that. And it's like, well, you're going to pay someone to do it.
That's right. That's right. And speaking of that, you just mentioned something about trust. Obviously, you get a lot of referrals, I imagine, folks, passing you on. So there's that automatic trust and rapport. But how do you gain someone's trust who you've never met before? How do you overcome that?
So I'll do a free consultation. Like I'll come in and I'll meet them. I'll sit down with them and go over things. And I mean, like I said, I'm just very honest about like what's going on. And, hopefully like they can see the sincerity in everything that I'm saying. I will offer them references if they want that. And then, of course, I always have a contract in place.
And do you sometimes sign a non-disclosure agreements depending on the type of company that you're dealing with as well? Does
Oh,
that help?
yeah. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's imperative. Yes.
yeah, that's great. So, Susan, what do you like best about what you do? Like, what's your favorite part? What gets you out of bed in the morning and ready to work?
Look, I do care about my clients and I do want them to succeed. And like I was saying, I work in a lot of small, medium-sized businesses. So it's rewarding to me knowing that I'm helping, their business be successful. And I enjoy that. Or, sometimes like it morphs into other things like business consulting and things like that. And, it's just the same thing. It's very rewarding helping, companies and seeing them be successful.
That's awesome. Susan, where can we find you?
You can find me on LinkedIn. My LinkedIn page is probably the best way. And it has my contact information on there.
Yeah, and you want to share your contact information with us?
Yeah, I can. And my email
Sure.
address is
Sure.
Susan. Yeah, it's susan.brill@me.com. Very easy.
Right. Awesome. Susan Brill from beautiful San Diego, California. Thank you so much for sharing your time with us today. And it's amazing, but businesses need you. You are a true hero of the American business because there's so many right now that are out there that it's interesting. There's a statistic that says that 80% of businesses never go to the next generation, never sell, they just fold. And at the end of the day, you can always trace that back to the numbers. And so it's so key to have someone like you in their corner who cares, who is competent, and has the right aptitude to be able to actually help those businesses succeed and make sure we can clean up those books and take that business to the next level. And hopefully one day in the future, right, be able to actually have value that they can sell and exit and transition. So, Susan Brill, thank you so much for joining the
Yeah,
Grow Your Wealth podcast. This is Ed De La Rosa, guest host, and looking forward to seeing you again, Susan. Thank you so much for joining us today.
49 faces looked to him in triumph. Over the last 12 months, they had each taken turns and promoted his business for a week at a time, driving over $987,342 in revenue. What if you had a network of 50 centers of influence who promoted your business every week for a year? Grab your copy of the #1 Amazon best-selling book, The Ultimate Guide to Growing Your Business with a Podcast, at 33% off the Amazon price by going to ultimatepodcastbook.com. Again, that website for 33% off the Amazon price is ultimatepodcastbook.com.